My friends, yesterday we learned about the pond habitat. A habitat is the place where animals and plants live together. Say that with me, habitat. Habitat. Plants and animals find all the things they need to survive and live right in their habitat. Remember, we learned that the pond has shallow water and land around on all sides. There are plants and animals that live in and around the pond. Some animals live in the pond water, and some animals live around the edge of the pond. Think about your list that you made and your pictures you drew of the plants and animals from yesterday. We might see some of those plants and animals in this story today because this story is about the pond too. Let's listen and see what other plants and animals live in the pond habitat, and we can add them to your list. Look and listen and see if you can remember the new pond animals and pond plants that we see in the pictures today, because I'm going to ask you to name them when we're finished reading. Remember, every time we read and learn new things, we learn new words. My friends, can you say croaking? That means to make a noise using your throat. Like, my friends say crouching. That means bending down. My friends say murky. That means cloudy, dark, and hard to see through, like murky pond water. My friends say reeds. Those are tall grasses that grow in the wet ground or in the water like the pond. My friends say shallow. That means not very deep. Like the pool at the park has shallow parts where you can touch the bottom. So mommy might take you to the pool, but she keeps you in the shallow part. That's the part that is not too deep. Let's look at some pictures. This frog can croak. What noise does a frog make? Or a toad? They croak. This is a pond animal crouching. He's bending down by the water, crouching. This water is a little dark and a little hard to see through. It is murky. And we see this tall grass growing from in the water. These are reeds. Grass in the water, they're really tall and they're called reeds. Ooh, we see the turtle and we see that frog. He's in the shallow water. It's not too deep. Let's start reading about the pond. Look all around. Do you see the calm, still water? Do you see the swimming ducks? Can you see the long green grass growing around the edge of the water? You see the pond habitat, but you can't see me. I'm tucked inside my shell, but I would love to pop out and meet you. My friends, remember this is still water. That means it's not moving. Can you stand very still like the water? Freeze. Only the ducks are moving the pond water a little tiny bit. These are ripples that they're making when they move through the still water. But we just heard someone. They said they're tucked inside of a shell. What animal do you think it could be? Hello there. My name is Tobias Turtle, and I live near the pond. Welcome to my habitat. Today, I'm going to explore the many plants and animals that live in and around the pond with me. Splash! What was that? It must have been a fish jumping out of the water, trying to catch a mosquito to eat. Bzzz! I think I hear a dragonfly flying by me. I'm going to tuck my legs in my shell and wait quietly to see what else I can see. Here's Tobias Turtle, that dragonfly, and that fish. I have been so still that many of my animal friends have come out of their hiding places. I can see an animal with a mask of dark fur around his eyes and stripes on its tail. It's a raccoon that has come to the pond to search for food. In the middle of the pond, a mother and father duck are teaching their ducklings how to swim. Now I'm going to stretch my legs back out of my shell and crawl slowly closer to the water's edge. I can see the furry beaver swimming through the pond, cutting and gathering the logs to build itself a home. It uses its strong front teeth to chew on the tree trunk until it falls to the ground. Then the beaver can build its home out of the logs that it dragged into the water. My friends, beavers have big, strong teeth so they can chew on this big tree trunk. They chew all the way through it until the tree falls down. And then they can drag it all the way into the water, into the pond, so they can build their house. Their house and their shelter is called Beaver Dam. They use the trees and plants they find in the pond to make their home. If we go back and look, this is what that beaver is doing. This is how their home looks. It's a big pile of sticks and logs, but it's really their shelter and their home where they live. There is the masked raccoon, crouching, bending down in the grass by the pond's edge. The raccoon takes a long drink of water, then he stays very still and waits for a fish to swim by. Maybe if he waits patiently, he will catch a fish with his sharp claws. On the other side of the pond, in the reeds, remember that's this tall grass, a great blue heron has been very patient. It has stood so long and so still that it caught a fish in its beak. My friends, many animals have to be very quiet and wait patiently to get their food to eat. Just like the raccoon, the heron has to be very still to catch his fish. If I look closely at furry brown cattails swaying gently in the breeze, I see insects flying from plant to plant. They're looking for tasty nectar on which to feed. Ribbit, ribbit. I hear a frog croaking nearby. It sits on the flat green lily pad, hoping a tasty fly will buzz by. I love to look closely at the insects that make their home in the pond. Dragonflies are expert flyers. They have 4 wings, so they can fly straight up and straight down, just like a helicopter. The water strider has a special talent. It can walk on top of the pond surface. It walks on water. I also see the monarch butterfly. It's drinking delicious nectar from this golden flower. I wonder where that frog went. It sure loves to look for insects too. My friends, remember we learned about insects earlier this year. They're small and they have 6 legs and they're sometimes called bugs. There's the frog. It was hiding. I can just barely see its eyes peering out of the water because it's green and it blends in with the lily pads. I think it must have gotten too hot, so it jumped off of its lily pad into the cool pond water. I'm feeling warm too, so I think I will get ready for a swim in the shallow pond water. What will I see when I dive down under the water? Wow! The long, tall stem of the water lily stretch all the way to the bottom of the pond. And I bet its roots grow down into that ground. There's the cattails. The stems grow under the water too. One of the turtles slid off of a rock and started swimming under the water looking for his snack. What else do you see under the water? The water in the pond is so murky and muddy I can hardly see. Murky means that it's cloudy and dark and hard to see through. It's hard to see the plants and the animals living underwater in this pond because it's just so murky. See how it's kind of brown and cloudy? Can you say murky? It's so murky and muddy I can hardly see. But I do see a fish swimming along, weaving between the stems of the lily pads. I can see the warm sunlight shining through the water into the deep pond. I wonder what I will find crawling along the bottom of the pond where it's dark and gloomy. I guess crayfish like the cold, murky water at the bottom of the pond. I see one using its antenna to feel around for food that might be nearby. Then it will use its front claws to get the food and put it in its mouth. I think I'm going to swim away before he finds me. This crawfish uses his antenna so he could feel around because he can't see very well in that cloudy water. If I follow the lily pad stems up, I can swim right back to the surface of the pond. The water gets warmer and warmer as I swim toward the sunlight. I can understand why the flower of the lily pad grows on top of the water. After all, that flower needs sun so its beautiful white flowers can grow and bloom. What part of the plant do we see, friends? We saw the flower and the leaves. And what do we see under the water? The stem. Remember that plant needs sun, water, air, and nutrients from all the way down in the soil to stay alive. They get their nutrients from their soil at the bottom of the pond. Remember where these stems go all the way down. That swim in the cool pond water was refreshing, but now I am worn out. It's time for me to say goodbye to the blue heron and the cattails, to the fish and the lily pads. I'm going to find a warm rock nearby where I can lay in the sun and dry off and take a nap. I think I'll take my time as I crawl slowly around looking for the perfect spot. Goodbye, friends.